Okay, now we're live. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Wednesday's live session. Before we go into our topic today, which is going to be focusing on the Healing Center teaching practices, and before we introduce our lovely guest, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Nancy Al-Hyari. I'm part of the Bella and Bella production team. I work as a chief financial officer. Bella and Bella production is a platform the aim of it is to build and nurture a strong community of women. We have partnered with Raise Awareness of Coaching and Education, and for who doesn't know what race is, I'm sure everybody here knows what race is. It's a movement for all stakeholders, parents, educators, students, even to come together to have a meaningful and inspirational conversation, accept differences, and raise awareness on the role of coaching and the importance of coaching and education. We're going to start with introducing you guys, or you ladies. Janani, if you can start, please. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Nancy. My name is Janani. I started my career as a software professional, but my passion for teaching led me to become a STEM educator in the field of early childhood education. As a mom and educator, I strongly believe that a balanced mental and emotional well-being is foundational to any kind of learning, growth, and development. In my current role as a transformational coach for parents and educators, I help parents and educators with a mindset change around their own emotional mental health, because I think that's key to balance the needs and demands of our current lifestyle. And my goal is to simplify parenting and improve adult child relationships and nurture children to be more confident, resilient, and compassionate.
Oh, that's wonderful. Edith? Thank you, Janani.
Good evening. Thank you, Nancy, Janani. My name is Edith Van Rensburg. I've have almost over 20 years of teaching experience in a variety of settings back in South Africa. And then the last almost 13 years, I've worked in Abu Dhabi and in the Western Zone in different roles, teaching and managerial. So for me, very important this topic talking about students and especially the little ones, that how important is and what an effect well-being has on their overall learning. So that is very important. Yes.
Thank you, Edith. Can we start with exploring growth as a pathway of healing? If you, Janani, would like to contribute.
Yeah, before we get there, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, why we are talking about healing center teaching practices. So healing center teaching practices is more about the whole child approach, where we're focusing more on some of those foundational skills like social, emotional, mental, even spiritual to a very large extent, because those are the foundational skills that we need to build upon in order to achieve academic excellence. So with the onset of COVID-19, we're seeing more and more cases of children having stress, anxiety, and even traumatic experiences. So the idea behind these healing-centered practices is to look at teachers as healers. So they are focusing on the needs and struggles of children and how they can help them grow through those stress and traumatic experiences in a more resilient way. So we want to build that resilience in children. So challenges are going to come one way or the other, right? Today it's pandemic and tomorrow it's going to be something else. But how are we going to prepare our children for the future? And that's the whole idea of growth as a pathway to healing. So how are we going to have teachers look beyond behaviors and consequences and actually address the issues at the root cause, because behavior is just a reflection of something that's happening deeper. So how are we going to address that and take it to the next level?
And I think key with that is, Janani, is to say um, the relationships that we build with students are very important. If you think back to your own childhood, your teachers, who are the teachers that you remembered and who had the most influence on your learning in your life? Are those that you had a very good relationship with? Or sometimes in the opposite way, who those you had a very bad relationship with? So the relationships and building that relationships with our students are so important, vitally important for helping them in these difficult situations when they have trauma or experiencing stress or this like with the COVID situation, you know. So that's very important for me as well.
Right. And just to add to what Edith mentioned about relationship, that is again foundational in order for children to actually open up and share their concerns with teachers or even parents, right? Having that open communication is built on that relationship.
Yes, I do agree. And as you both, said that the teacher is the heart of the healing center education, because at the end, if the teacher is equipped, and most of our students stay with the teacher and see them every day more than maybe sometimes than their parents or even, other stakeholders, but the teacher, they do have a huge part in this. So how do you both think that teachers, can help students learn how to grow, how to, understand that this growth is what gonna, lead them eventually to healing. Sometimes even like simple things like learning new skills in school and stuff like that. What do you think about this, Janani?
The first and foremost thing is for teachers to have self-care in place, right? Because this is a huge responsibility that they're taking, and they are trying to cater to children and help them grow and develop. So it's very important for teachers to have self-care and a better support system so they can implement all these things that we're talking about, all the healing center teaching practices, and really encouraging a lot of things within the classroom setting, bringing in mindfulness and gratitude and talking about all those things, bringing more peer-to-peer connections within children. All of these things enhance in building that community, because a lot of times we think so much about individuals and very narrow-minded, but now we have to grow as a community, and inculcating that community feel in children right from a young age can actually help them even relate to what they're learning in school, the challenges that they're undergoing themselves, and how they relate it to a larger community.
Yeah. And I think that's why teachers need to have training on how to deal with, to have the strategies to deal with traumas, to deal with actual well-being of students, be really fully equipped and their well-being. But first, the teachers need to be okay, as you said. They need to take care of themselves, know how to do self-care, and that needs another bunch of trainings.
Mhm.
Because we do sometimes, when you talk to teachers, you notice sometimes they still do not know how to do the self-care and separate. And I do feel like uh, teachers that work with trauma students do need more self-care than other teachers. Edith, would you like to add something?
Yes, talking about self care as well for the teachers, and it also goes with the adage saying, to love someone, you have to first love yourself. And if
That's
you are traumatized or you are not taking care of yourself as a teacher, then it's so more difficult to help your students. You might not have the patience or the compassion that you should have if you yourself are frazzled. So yes, self care for the teachers very important, and
yeah,
then
that's
for the students. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Another great thing with self-care is the more and more you take care of yourself, you're able to connect with yourself, with your own emotions. Then you are able to connect with other people, right? You are more understanding. And as Edith has mentioned about compassion, that's definitely, it's all going to benefit. It's just that we put that on the sideline all the time because we're thinking about how can we cater to others, but definitely very important.
yes. Thank you. Okay, so now if we can move to the restorative practices, how can these practices foster the healthy relationship? Because as you both ladies said before, that healthy relationships is very important for the healing center practices. How these healthy relationships can improve the social connections and help our students and teachers.
Yeah, Edith, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention that there, when you're talking about healing centered teaching and learning, it's there's four core practices, right, Nancy? So if you would care to, so it's justice,
Learning capacity, accountability. Yes.
opportunities to explore and learn, and the last one, Janani.
Capacity and accountability.
Cat. Yes. So those are the four core main ideas around um, this the healing centered learning or schools communities. So we
Right.
can discuss that a little bit more now.
Yeah, and when we talk about restorative practices, this actually comes from the justice juvenile sector, where we are talking about building community relationships, where when you know that you belong to a community and you're being supported by a community, you are more accountable for your actions, and there's more respect for one another. So we are actually trying to bring this practice into the school system, where children are given opportunities to connect with one another, share their stories, develop those feelings of empathy. Here in the US, we have circle time for young children, right? In preschool stages, we have circle time. But I think the idea is to expand that circle time even when kids grow up, because it gives them the opportunity to talk to one another, to improve their listening skills, and really understand that they're not alone in their challenges, right? Everybody has challenges in different ways, but we are trying to come together to problem solve. And when we start doing this in the school community, children can also teachers as facilitators can help them connect their challenges with the bigger challenges that exist in the society. So it's all an opportunity for children to interact and trust one another and be and represent as a community member in a broader way.
How do you think the schools can start doing this? Like, how do you think that they can implement these ideas, like creating community? Like, does that have to be in school, outside school? How is that going to be? Or how is it going to look like?
I think for me that's it's like building a school spirit and uh, building a kind of a character around your school that the students can buy into, whether it be uh, for cycles, lower cycles or higher cycles, primary or high schools. Um, the schools that are successful and the schools that build the community, you see that they have this central part of a character that's this school. If you look at the Ivy League schools or even small town schools, where this central ideas like a school mascot and the school team supporting the school team, and everybody is part of that, and having prep rally and everybody, those kind of things build the spirit of the school, and the students buy into that and form parts of their character then, in positive sometimes, and unfortunately also sometimes in negative ways, but we rather focus on the positive, I think.
Yeah,
But for me that
and
is like the character, yes.
right. And I think some of the key aspects of it is to also involve community members, family
That's
members,
right,
right?
yes.
It's not just teacher-student relationship, but there's a whole lot of other outside agencies that we're looking at to come together.
That's right. And I think that's what we kind of in our situation a little bit struggling still, is to get the wider community in our um, areas, to get them involved into schools, because historically there was a kind of a no for outside influences to be part of the school, and we really would like to get parents more involved, come to the school, read to the students more, what are you doing in the community, the local bakery, the local little coffee shop, come in and speak to the students, that kind of thing, to
Yeah,
build that community spirit, yes.
absolutely.
Yes. I did read about an Auckland, a school in Auckland. I think they did what they did was really lovely. I loved it. Like as you ladies said, they started with the well-being, but they gave that a year for the teachers, like focusing on educators. The first 2 years, they actually just focused, especially the first year, on educators, their well-being, their training, because they said, well, first the educators, then we can move on to parents and students, and because if the educators are good, then the rest can follow with that. And well, what I loved is that what I've noticed, like what my principal sometimes does in my school, which is like have a breakfast for the informal meetings, where teachers can start building their own community, especially like for huge schools. Sometimes you don't even know all the teachers. Like
Yes.
having, breakfast, lunch, or whatever, where you don't take extra time from the teachers the same day, but sometimes maybe they do have an exam or the student takes a day off or whatever. They just come in, build these relationships that you ladies talked about, and then once they build that support and they do have their own support system, it'd be easier to provide that support system to students. Once the admin, and because not just the educators themselves, we need to include the admin. They are a big and huge part of that.
Yes.
And touching on what you ladies talk about community, what the school in Auckland did is it was really lovely. I'm going to send you ladies the link for it, what they did. Um, what they did is they involved everybody in the community when we went that stage. I'm not sure if it was the fourth or the third year. Like the local hospital, the charity places over there, the parents, even like the schools nearby, like how sometimes, because my school and Edith's school is neighbors, so sometimes we do
Yes.
take their schools to ours, especially when there's like event that we need, kids to make things better, because usually, it's like one student, kids. So there's a lot of ideas in that touches the same things that you ladies said, and they said, as you ladies said, the most important thing was building relationship, and that's what took a lot of time to do, and but that's what made it successful. Is that building strong relationship.
Right.
Before we go to the practices or the foundational practices of healing centered, I want to go back to what Janani at the beginning she said, how behavior enhance resilience. But can we start first to talk about Janani? What does resilience mean for these kids, and
Yeah,
then we can.
and
Yeah.
it reminds me about Nancy. You had this conversation last week with Mayusha and Gina about resilience, right? Building resilience and how it's important. One aspect that really resonates with me and what you had mentioned is how children can change their approach in terms of what skills do I need to have in order to become something or reach my goal, right? Say you want to become a doctor or an astronaut, when you're thinking in terms of what skills do I need to have. And this resonates so much with me because as a STEM educator, I try to teach children about this. And what exactly we're doing by this is we're not looking at our limitations, which often prevents us from even trying things, but we're looking at the possibilities and what all the skills we are able to acquire in order to reach our goal. And that is really key to have resilience, because then we're more forgiving, more compassionate, and a bit more flexible um, and in a non-judgmental way. So we are able to strengthen our abilities to learn new things. And when we tie that to, when we are undergoing any negative emotions, how that resilience is actually going to help us get through those emotions in a much quicker way. So, a lot of times what happens when those behaviors that we're talking about, children get disconnected and disengaged when they are going through all these emotions. And when they get disengaged, it means they are getting disengaged from their classroom, their peers, their teachers, and even from the world. So how do we help them re-engage, right? And that's where the resilience comes. So teachers as healers, when they are able to help them build that resilience through a variety of actions, right? As we talked about those circle times, even involving children in volunteering actions and providing service to people. Those are some ways where we can build those resilient muscle, and just letting them know that they're not alone in their challenges and how they can learn through their interaction with peers as well.
It's like creating a safe place for them that they can, feel, because you never know what the trauma exactly is. It could be something, that it's a place they need, that place to feel safe, comfortable, and feel free to do whatever they want.
But
And
even
before we go to Edith, I'm gonna go back to you, Janani, and discuss what strategies we can use to achieve that, like healing centered for these students. Yes,
But
yes.
even to say that even normal students, even students that haven't experienced trauma in the normal sense, uh, we could always help them to gain more resilience by emphasizing the idea of the growth mindset. I keep trying, I keep trying. It doesn't matter, maybe I'm not successful the first time or the second time, but the greater worth is in trying, keep on trying. So to foster that and to reward that effort that they put forward, because once they have that little spark of success, that's where you see uh, the child just starting to bloom and come forward. It's to foster that, to just keep on, you can do it, you can try, just try. Sometimes because our days are so hectic and time managed, and we have to get quickly through this topic or through this period and this idea, that sometimes we forget about these things, and it's easier to maybe say, oh, we'll try it tomorrow, we'll try it tomorrow. But it's important that we do give that opportunity for them to practice and try again, to say yes.
Now, Edith, what strategies or activities that we can do in the classroom to help students have that growth mindset? Especially your kids are at the young age, up to grade 3 and 4. So, what type of activities we can do to grow that mind?
Mm. Not activities as such, but from the teacher's point of view, to
Mm,
encourage your students and to reward that effort, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not 100%, but to encourage that effort that they do put forward, and to recognize that, especially for students that are struggling and that are coming from different difficult situations or difficult um, academic backgrounds. Maybe they don't have as much support at home and they're struggling to cope. Is to support them in as much as you can, by encourage them as much as you can, and by coming back to what we said before, the peer, to band them up with a peer. Sometimes students perform better when they have a friend next to them, the friend that can explain to them in their own little way how this thing works, how this math concept is working. So that the peers can, they rub off on each other and say, oh, it's not so difficult, it's just you do like this and this and this, and then, oh, okay, and then they go. So for me,
yeah,
that's important, the encouragement and helping each other.
yeah, I do think peers, can make a lot of differences. You see that, like maybe because they are on the same age, I don't know, there's more comfortable or whatever, but sometimes you see them grow more when you pair them with a student that matches with their personality and their, the ability to understand. Yeah, I do agree with that. Janani, let's go back to when you were saying that there's few things that we can do as, healing educators. What we can do to help these students to heal. And I don't know if you can touch base a little bit how we can actually say that the student is behaving because he has faced trauma or because they're just misbehaving.
Right. So, when we see a behavior, we're just trying to fix that behavior or correct that behavior in the moment, right? And especially for teachers, when they're focusing on 40 other students, it's very hard for them to just,
With
take the
pressure
time and sit
from
with the
peers.
child, right? Yeah, but that is where we need a support system. So teachers have enough support from the administrators to make sure that when a child is going through or having this kind of a behavior, then we need a system of a team support system who are actually able to find out what's happening with the child, what are some unmet needs or struggles that the child is going through. It may not be the case all the time, but a lot of times behavior has an underlying reason. Even it could be as simple as even being bored, right? So then what is it that the child needs because he's bored in the class? So what does he need in order to get through that boredom and still be able to focus? So that's where having a dedicated team of teachers who are constantly monitoring, finding out the needs and struggles of children, especially at-risk students, and trying to find ways to connect resources. And we want to be mindful that teachers cannot problem solve all the time, right? Especially when they are teaching in a classroom. But if they are able to connect students with the right resources, even a mentor, outside of the school or outside of the family, then those are ways where we are actually taking steps forward in order to help children, understand the impact of their behavior and see what else they could do in order to express themselves better. That's where all those restorative circles are helpful, because then children are practicing to express themselves in the most appropriate ways.
You hit it spot on to say that, students act in a certain way, but there's always a reason for why they are acting. It is very rarely that a student is just acting out because he's acting out. Most of the cases, if you go back and you speak, in our schools, in our situation, we have social workers, and they form a vital role in our schools, because they become, especially for us, as non-Arabic speaking speakers. For me, Nancy, you can speak Arabic, so you're in a bit of a better situation. But for me, as a non-Arabic speaker, sometimes those little ones, they cannot express themselves to me in an appropriate way because they just don't have the language skills. So it is so important for me to have that connection with the social worker so that she can come in and explain to me. Sometimes you find out that there's situation is happening, the parents are getting divorced, or there's no father present in the home at all, or there's some financial difficulties in the home, and these all have effects on the students. And if you as a teacher are not aware of that, um, it kind of make it more difficult for you. So being able to have those conversations and ask the people. I always find if I have a question, if I'm concerned about a student, it's always better to ask someone, what do you think about this one? Do you know anything about his home situation? Maybe speaking with our Arabic colleagues often helps me as well, to guide me, and because they have the language ability to speak with our students better. So that's for us in our situation, that's more difficult. But to have those, again, connections, and you say that support system, to get to know who you can help, who can help you.
Mm-hmm. And Edith, I think you mentioned it, a really good point, and something comes to my mind. When you mentioned teachers should be asking these questions as to, what is going on with the child, what is the background and all that. I think this is a good practice to incorporate in classrooms where teachers are showing how to be curious, right, in order to find out what's happening. And the more we practice doing that, children are going to reflect that back on, and they're going to start becoming more curious. And what we're trying to do is, again, it's more about building resilience. When they grow up, they're going to start doing that on themselves, like self-reflection, to find out why they are behaving in a certain way and how they can actually stop that behavior. So it's all connected.
Yes, wonderful. Wonderful. And if I want to add like something small that I've noticed in most schools is the communication between the school themselves. Because as you said, sometimes you do not know the background, but the admins know about the background of the child. And once you know it, makes your life so much easier and the students' life so much easier. Because now you know there's something behind this behavior. And now you know how to, address that behavior in whatever, situation. And that's why communication needs to be done. And that's we go back to the building relationship that you guys, ladies started talking about at the beginning. Once you build relationship, it's easier to communicate these things, and everybody, you don't feel left out. Because I did feel sometimes I'm left out. Why don't I know about this kid? I would have, helped them better or understood what they're going through instead of just thinking like, why? Because sometimes they don't want to tell you, the students.
True.
You need, not everybody feels like they want to share with. At the end of the line, we are their teachers, but we're still a little bit strangers, especially if the first few months you're teaching, they still don't know who you are. And it takes a bit to build relationships, especially with high
Yes.
school students. It's not easy.
Little ones are a little bit
Need to
easy
like
because
you and love you, then you can. And that takes a lot of effort. Sometimes even if you want to pretend that you like one of their K-pop bands or TV series that like, yes, Yeah. And sometimes you have to watch it just to know what they're talking about,
Yep.
to build these small connections with the girls. Um, okay, before we go to our Q&A, let's try to wrap it up with four foundational practices of healing, the ones that we touched base at the
Yeah.
beginning. Edith, if you can share with us the justice and learning, your thoughts on these two, and then we can move on to Banani, where you can discuss with us the capacity and accountability in this, in building these in our, healing centered practices in our communities.
So the first principle talks about justice, the whole idea of justice. And in our situation, it's slightly different from you, Janani. I think in America, where there's more racial conflict, where here it's not so prevalent because the population is more homogenous in the public schools. Where the private schools, there's more mixed bag. But in the public schools, it's pretty much 90% are Emiratis. So, um, but even so, the whole idea of justice is very important for students. Even the smallest thing, if you are not treating the students fairly, they will pick up on it, and it brings forth negative feelings, and which we want to prevent. Like, for example, the greatest for me, and even for me as a child, that I would have experienced is being punished, the whole class, because one student or two students didn't do what they're supposed to. That's a small example, but justice is a very big and broad idea, but those are the most important, that everybody be treated fairly and the same, no matter what, the color of the skin, the background, the financial or not financial, they should be treated. And we as educators should be very mindful of this, um, the small, and watch how we treat each student, that we treat them all fairly and equally. So that when it's and the second part talks about, the second one I want to talk about is the opportunities for students to learn and explore and lead. And what is very important in this part, especially for healing, is the students need to be given a choice. So often, what I would, I had a student, she was absent for 8 weeks of the school and was online the whole time. And then she suddenly came back to class and she was very emotionally upset. And just to give her that time, do you want to sit here or do you want to just go outside, go to the bathroom, have a drink of water, and come back in? That often helps the student just to have a choice, because often in their lives, they don't have any choice. So to have them that feeling that they have control of something small makes a huge difference for them. And also, talking about student bodies, I'm trying to push in my school that we involve the students more in choices, that we build a student body where they have say in some things that happen in school. That is also very important for them to have a choice and a say in um, what happens in their school.
Yeah, great points, Edith. I think having the choice is really great, especially when children are in their growing phase. They're always trying to test boundaries, right? So, ways to avoid some of those power struggles, be it at school or with peers or with parents, giving them those opportunities of having those choices and simple things makes a huge impact to have them feel that empowerment.
Yes, and the way that what you said, like give them time to feel control. What I've seen in one of the school was they created a calm corner or calm space
Mm-hmm.
for the student. Like the student went in and decorated the space, and whenever they just needed that few minutes, they would just go there and sit. And that was really wonderful to see that it was really working. So sometimes, like it's just small things that us we can do in the classroom can make a huge difference.
And it's
Yeah.
not just for small students. I remember I saw a clip once of a university that had these pods, like little closed pods. So if they felt stressed or nervous, they could go into this little pod and close themselves up and have a little breather and then come out again. So we
Sometimes
all
as
need that
teachers, we
little.
need that too.
Sorry.
Sometimes as teachers, we need that too. Just take,
Yes,
a good breather.
absolutely.
Yes, yes. Yes, Janani. Can we go, yes, to the last two parts on
Right.
capacity and
So Edith
accountability?
mentioned about justice and learning, right? The other two foundational practices are, we're talking about the support system that we had mentioned earlier. So, in order to incorporate all these practices that we're talking about, we need a strong support system. And there are also other aspects like, funding and time management and all that. But really, the key is to have dedicated staff members meeting on a regular basis who are constantly, collecting data about students, monitoring their progress, making areas of improvements, and really pondering on what's working and what's not working, and then how we connect with the outside agencies to bring in more support. And when we say outside agencies, it could mean like health organizations or therapists or coaches, whatever kind of support we need. It's essential for us to have the dedicated team who are able to spend that time in doing all this work in the background, and then ultimately supporting the students and children. And when we talk about support system, it's equally important for giving opportunities to students to support one another. And that's where we are talking about all those peer relationship, right? And I think one other interesting thing is letting children practice those skills in the school environment. So we talk about leadership opportunities and all those things, but how do we actually help them practice those skills? And school is a great safe environment where they can start doing that. And then giving the opportunity for students to give feedback, right? Everyone needs feedback, and giving them the voice to give their feedback on how learning is happening or what kind of learning they would like to have so that they benefit. So these are great support systems to have in place in order for us to implement all these healing center teaching practices that we're talking about. And the last one is probably more important, I would say, is accountability, right? So we have all these systems in place. We have teams that are working in their own way to help build that community, but making sure that we have the infrastructure and every team is being accountable and justifying their actions of what they're doing. Meaning, when we take about children and managing their emotions and behavior and all that, how are we making sure that we are keeping track of their progress? How are we making sure that even any of these tools are working for them, right? So having that accountability set in place is really important. And uh, some of the some of the data we normally collect is absence rates, how they're doing grade wise, how their reading levels are, how about the standardized tests. But I think some of uh, other information that would be really key is to find out their family engagement. We had talked about what kind of struggles they have going on back in the family. So having those kind of data can also help in supporting children in the best way.
Okay, that's beautifully said. We need that, as you said, the accountability system to measure. We need effective, targeted, like we need targeted goals first. Then we see how we're going to measure these. And I said, keep coming back and see what we're doing right, what we need to be improved. And just like it's an infinite loop, and it's not going to happen in 1 year. Sometimes it takes longer than that. It's not easy to heal.
Right.
Everybody has a situation, and we all understand that takes a lot of time and
And
process.
And I think we already have a lot of systems like that. For example, here we have the MTSS, which is the multi-tiered system of supports, early intervention, right? So we are actually keeping track of children who need extra support, and the goal is to actually bring all of them into the mainstream curriculum, so it's not like separated, but it's part of the school schedule.
Yeah,
And
great.
even when we talk about support system, making sure that teachers have the time to um, meet up with other staff members and undergo training as part of their mainstream schedule. So it's
Mm.
all built in. So we're making, we are
Understand.
prioritizing all of those things.
Yeah, that's really great. It was really insightful. Now we're gonna start taking a few questions. Let me just open the Q&A. Okay. Oh, I love this one. It says, how can we or you as an educator manifest intrinsic motivation in others to heal, if any?
I think, we talked about self-care and all of those things. So everything has to start from the adult in the classroom, and how the way they are showing resilience, the way they are bouncing back. This is really key in sharing your story, right? That's where oftentimes we don't have time for teachers to actually start sharing their story, how their day went, what went wrong, and what went not so good, and how they are coming out of it. All of those things can build those motivation skills in children, because then they understand that, okay, they also have problems, everyone has problems, but then they are trying to um, get over it, and trying to move forward, have a more forward thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
This
think
is
for me,
actually, yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, Edith, just continue.
I think for me also a very integral part is I often use humor. Students respond very well to humor, and deliberately, for my sake, making a mistake, something I write on the board, or doing something, I'm making a deliberate mistake, and then, oh, it's okay, I can fix it. Can you help me to fix it? And making it a positive experience, but using humor and laughing at myself, and having them laugh with me as well. So I often find humor is a very good way to breach that and to break the ice and to help students that are struggling to have a better
I
positive.
love, yeah, you're teaching them as well how to, it's fine to make a mistake.
Yep.
Everybody does.
Yep.
Yeah, I do
Right.
love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also we are trying to handle those feelings of embarrassment and guilt and shame and everything, right? We are going to face all those emotions one way or the other, but how do we actually get through those emotions? That's more key.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And I think that's where sometimes what we need to focus, like stop the curriculum for a bit and let's just have small talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Yes.
That you
Yes.
that helps a lot. And what Janani said just reminded me of in one of the schools, what they did is that was before COVID. They would include someone like the parents of the students themselves. They would come in and share their story. Like they would have maybe once a month a speaker, and they could relate more because, as you said, like here, Edith, most of them are Emiratis. So sometimes, if you want to influence them, it's really good to see a strong woman who's coming and sharing her stories. So
Yes.
yeah, so what Janai said is really, reflecting what that school did, and hopefully it was helpful. But COVID came, things changed. Probably things gonna go again. Let me see what other okay, this one is a nice question. How does self-reflection or evaluation aid healing process?
Mm. I
You
think
want to go?
self-reflection is very important because how can you change anything if you do not reflect upon your emotions or your feelings in that situation? So yes, self-reflection is very important and a very important skill that we need to teach our students, which they struggle to do, to self-reflect and think about having that little bit of quiet times. Just think about, did you do your best? Did you try? And these small things, small little steps for the little ones, I'm saying, starting there, self reflecting on those little things and then building it up to more. But also starting from the small ones, we need to teach them what are different emotions. We often do teach them, kind of emotions and how do we react in certain situations. So this is all part of the teaching process, which is not curriculum per se, but it is part of what we do as teachers, incidentally. But self-reflection is very important. Without that, nothing can change.
And I would like to add to what Edith is saying here. We in reality we actually do self-reflection, but in a more negative way. Because whenever we make a mistake, we start thinking in terms of, "Oh, wish I've done differently. I feel so bad. I feel so embarrassed." But when we give the term self-reflection, it's more about, in a very calm state, you are trying to analyze what went wrong, and then you're trying to do it in a more better way next time, and in a more compassionate way, rather than sabotaging yourself or acting in a certain way.
Yes, that's actually true. We sometimes like we criticize more self-worth than
Yes.
people from the outside of us. That's true. How can different stakeholders contribute to the healing journey? And the stakeholders that they mentioned is principal, students, and parents.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah, we keep talking about all this community building and everything, right? So as long as everyone is accountable for their actions and they are coming together in a more collaborative way, I think uh, getting this healing practices in practice is or getting these healing practices to be built into the system becomes much more easier, because all said and done, we have different teams, but unless we work in a collaborative way, nothing is going to happen. And because teachers need that support from the administrators, um, in order to implement any such things, it has to come from the higher hierarchy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think yes, to get, and sometimes we tend to think that getting the greater community involved is huge, huge organizations, but it does not need to be that. You can start very small, like getting parents involved in the school, getting them to come and support an activity or do something in the school that just get them more involved directly into the school instead of just bringing the students to school and then leaving from school. Yeah. So
It's
building
also an
those.
opportunity. It's
Mm,
also an opportunity for parents to know what's going on in the school system and how they can contribute. Here in the U.S., a lot of schools have this practice of having parents as a guest speaker,
mhm.
to middle schoolers and high schoolers, where they talk about their careers, what they did to get to this, why did they choose this career, and what are the skills required for this, and how this career is actually contributing to the society. Um, and all that. So definitely parent involvement is important.
That's, I totally agree with that. Parent is a huge part of the situation. And we have another question that says, how can self-efficacy induce healing?
Sorry, say that again, Nancy.
Self-efficacy, if I'm reading it right,
Yeah.
Efficacy.
And what is that?
And
Self-efficacy?
how can that induce healing? Induce healing.
You know what? Healing is a process, and in order for anything to happen, it has to come from within us, and we have to have the mindset that it is possible to achieve something like that. Oftentimes what happens when we are stressed out or have all those traumatic experiences, or even a negative cycle that's going on within us, our brain shuts off from the thinking mode. We are not in a receiving stage, but we are more about being stuck in that
Yeah.
state. So it's important for us to have that mindset that this is not permanent, right? It is possible for us to get through this, and then and we have the support of other people who can actually help us get through this. So just trusting the system and believing in yourself, and being more strong in terms of getting through those situations and challenges, even behavioral issues, is really key. Because a lot of times what I see is when children make mistakes, they then sit through it and then say that they are bad. They're bad, they are behaving bad, and then they are going to be a bad child forever. But really, we want to drive the message that everybody makes mistakes, but the key is for you to realize that and understand that using all the support system that you have, you can actually become a better version of yourself.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and always, if you don't have the appropriate support systems to go wider and seek support, often we are very reluctant to try and ask for help. But I think that's important. If we model that we are asking for help, it will also help our students to ask for help. So say, okay, can someone help me with this? And because we as adults, we don't want to admit to a weakness or a problem we have. So if we um, need to seek help when you need it, that's important, I think, as well.
It's a skill that needs to be learned, actually, like to ask for help, not to feel vulnerable. Actually, it's good to ask for help. That means you do have a great support system.
Yep.
Look on the positive side instead of,
Yes.
I'm asking because I don't know. It's not, I'm asking because I have people to help me.
Yeah.
Um,
I just wanted to add, because kids of this generation think that asking for help makes them very weak, because they feel that they know everything and they can do everything by themselves. But really, the key to empowerment is actually knowing when to seek help and whom to ask for help. That is something that we need to build in children's mind, that asking help doesn't mean that you're weak or vulnerable.
Means you're
Yeah.
smart.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll share the last two comments because they're not actual question. We have a comment that says, create space for kids to be kids, to have fun. I love that.
Very important.
That's
Very,
Yes.
especially for the little ones. And
yeah.
they have shown so many times that um, if the schools that have less break time, the students struggle more. Actually, they actually need to physically go out and move and run around and just be
Yeah,
kids. Just be, run around like a crazy rabbit, with no purpose, just to run.
I love it when the admin and the teachers join the students with these. I feel like the students, have that bonding time with the teachers, playing football or basketball or playing whatever games. So it's really nice. Like I do agree, like kids needs to be kids. Even sometimes in high schools, you find that they just want,
Yes.
that playtime, to play with their friends, to play with their teachers. That's really, a good comment. Another comment says, we have to love all students and show them support. And I guess, yeah,
Exactly.
that's,
Yes, that is crucial. Coming back to that, building that relationships. We know,
yeah,
we cannot always like all our students, but we can love them.
Yeah, that's where the unconditional love comes
Yes.
into picture, right? It's be it for parents or teachers. We have a responsibility in the classroom, and our goal is to help them be successful, and whatever we can do from our end to build that relationship and take it forward is essential.
Mhm.
yeah. Like even when you're correcting behaviors, like sometimes small things, I'm sure you encounter these, like why you knock on the door before you enter a classroom or small things like that. Tell
Mhm.
them that because I do care about you and I want you to be a better you or whatever. They do feel and pick up on that. They pick up that, okay, this teacher cares for me. So I'm
Yes.
Hmm.
just gonna put up the work, extra work, or, you
Mhm.
know, do the homework or work with you in the classroom. Or sometimes even you see them help you with the other students' behavior because they saw that you care. So
Yes.
now they want to show you they care as well. And that's
Yeah.
just infectious. Like it infects everybody. Because love spreads easily.
And Nancy, I think you mentioned a really key word here, transformation, right? Every teacher needs to be mindful that what we're really trying to do is help children transform um, um, for the future, right? Not just temporarily fix your behavior, but
Yeah.
how is it actually impacting you in the future? And what are you actually learning from this
Mhm.
mistake? And how are you taking it in the future? Building that integrity and responsibility and accountability is really important.
Always tell the girls, if you see me
Yes.
not correcting you, that means I'm no longer here. Like you see me always caring, don't be like sometimes you talk a lot about little things. Why it doesn't matter? It matters when you grow up. Maybe
Mhm.
it doesn't matter now. That even like the way they talk to your friends. Maybe they let it slide now, but once you grow up, it not would be okay. Speak that way to your friend. She's your friend. You should spoke to her in a loving, respectful way. Yes, no, but kids are wonderful. Like they do learn, they pick up. It's if you show them love, they will show you love, no matter whatever they are facing. And you see them like tell you, Miss, even if I'm sometimes rude to my teachers, it's helping, and that's always good to hear. Like keep it up, even if the behaviors you may not see them extremely like change from A to Z, but they will tell you it's helping even I'm still a bit, walking my path because everybody has their own pace of, how to grow, be a better person or how to heal because now we're talking about healing. Everybody has their own pace on healing.
Yeah, and healing definitely takes a lot of time. We cannot expect changes to happen right away, especially when children have more deeper concerns going on, be it from family side or their own struggles. So giving them that space and time um, to heal is important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like that everybody is different
different.
process is
Definitely.
different. Well, thank you, Janani and Edith. As always, like Janani, it was wonderful meeting you here. It was a wonderful talk, and Edith, it's always good to see you, talk to you. And thank you, everybody, for the viewers who participated with their questions and comments, and that they had, seen us on this live. And we will see you next Wednesday with another live session that we will be led with Gina. We're going to go deeper on how can growth be a pathway to healing and discuss how we're going to, instill that in our students and schools. Again, thank you, Janani and Edith. It was wonderful seeing
Thank you, Nancy, for having me here. And it was a great
you.
conversation with you, Edith.
Thank you, Janani. Nice
It was
meeting you.
wonderful.
Hope we can collaborate on some more things in the future.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you,
Great.
Nancy.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
night or good morning for you, Janani.
Have a good
Thank you.
day.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye bye.